The massive chamber on Zentara Prime buzzed with the voices of 1,000 alien species. Dr. So-Min Lee stood at the human delegation table, her hands gripping the smooth metal surface as she watched the voting display. Red lights flickered across the holographic board as species after species voted in favor of resolution. For 7-Alpha. Her heart sank with each new vote. The resolution was simple, but devastating. All younger species in the galaxy had to give up 60% of their military, ships, and weapons. They would also accept protective oversight from the older, more established civilizations. The Galactic Council called it protection. So-Min called it slavery. Admiral Hyun-Woo Park sat beside her, his weathered face showing no emotion. He had commanded Earth's space fleet for 20 years. He had fought in 3 major galactic wars, always defending Council territories and interests. Now, the Council wanted to strip away most of his fleet because humans were considered too young and reckless to be trusted. The Vorthan, Chancellor Morthok, raised his tentacled arm from the central podium. His species had ruled their corner of the galaxy for 50,000 years. They saw themselves as the wise elders who should guide all younger races. His voice echoed through the translation systems in a dozen different languages. The younger species lack wisdom, Morthok announced. They are quick to anger and slow to think. This protection will keep them safe from their own mistakes. It will bring peace to the galaxy? So-Min felt her anger rising. She thought about all the times human soldiers had died protecting Council worlds. She remembered the Nexari crisis 12 years ago, when human engineers had worked around the clock to prevent the collapse of the Nexari Collective's core worlds. She recalled the border wars where human pilots had flown suicide missions to stop invading forces from reaching civilian populations. The voting continued. The crystalline Nexari voted yes with their harmonic chimes. The gaseous ether beings pulsed their agreement in waves of light. Species after species supported the resolution. Some looked apologetic, but they voted yes anyway. They were afraid to stand against the powerful elder races. Captain Jin-Ho Kim watched from the observer section, his pilot uniform crisp and clean. He commanded the experimental starship Taeguk, one of Earth's most advanced vessels. The ship used new quantum fold technology that could move faster than anything else in the galaxy. Jin-Ho had tested the limits of the technology in secret missions. He knew what humans were really capable of, even if the Council did not. Ambassador Mi-Young Choi tried one last diplomatic approach. She activated her speaking request and stepped forward when recognized. Her voice was calm but firm as she addressed the assembly. Honorable delegates, Earth has served this Council faithfully for 200 years. We have contributed our technology, our resources, and our lives to galactic peace. We ask only for the respect that any sovereign species deserves. This resolution treats us like children who cannot be trusted with their own defense. A ripple of dismissive sounds came from various alien delegates. The Vorthan Chancellor waved a tentacle impatiently. Your species has existed in space for barely 2 centuries, Morthok replied. We have maintained galactic peace for millennia. Trust must be earned over time, not claimed through brief service. Mi-Young felt the insult cut deep. She had spent her entire career building relationships with alien species. She had learned their languages, studied their cultures, and worked to find common ground. Now they dismissed her efforts as if they meant nothing. The final vote came down to the wire. The display showed 847 votes in favor, 153 against. Resolution 47 Alpha had passed. Earth and dozens of other younger species would have to surrender most of their military power within 1 galactic standard year. So-Min stood slowly and activated her quantum communicator. The device connected instantly to Admiral Park's fleet, which waited in orbit around Zentara Prime. Her voice was steady despite the emotion she felt. Admiral Park, initiate Protocol Omega. We are coming home. The alien delegates looked confused. They had never heard of Protocol Omega. Even some of Earth's allies in the Council seemed surprised. Admiral Park's voice came back clearly through the communicator. Understood, Dr. Lee. All human assets are to withdraw immediately. Evacuation begins in 1 hour. Morthic slammed his speaking rod against the podium. You cannot simply leave the council. There are procedures, treaties, and obligations to consider. Somin turned to face the Chancellor directly. For the first time in the session, she smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. Chancellor Morthok, Earth hereby formally withdraws from all Galactic Council treaties and agreements. We renounce our membership and all associated obligations. You wanted to see how the galaxy functions without human interference. Now you will have that chance. The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates from dozens of species began talking at once. Some demanded that Earth be forced to comply with the resolution. Others worried about the implications of humanity's sudden departure. A few species that depended heavily on human trade and technology looked genuinely frightened. Admiral Park was already in motion. Throughout Council space, human military commanders received coded orders that had been prepared years in advance. Every human ship, station, and outpost began immediate evacuation procedures. The largest military withdrawal in galactic history was about to begin. Jin-Ho received his orders while still sitting in the observer section. His ship and crew were to escort civilian transports from the Outer Rim territories. The Quantum Fold technology would allow them to move entire populations in a matter of days rather than months. As the human delegation prepared to leave, Mi Young made one final statement to the council. Her diplomatic training kept her voice professional, but her words carried the weight of finality. For 200 years, humanity has been a loyal member of this council. We have fought your wars, maintained your trade routes, and protected your colonies. We ask for nothing but equal treatment and respect. Instead, you have chosen to treat us as servants rather than partners. She paused and looked around the chamber at the alien faces watching her. Some showed regret, others relief, and a few showed fear as they began to understand what humanity's departure might mean. Today you have taught us a valuable lesson about our place in this galaxy. We are not your equals in your eyes, and we never will be. Therefore, we choose to find our own path among the stars. We wish you well in your future endeavors without U.S. The human delegation walked out of the council chamber for the last time. Behind them, the greatest civilization in galactic history began to realize what they had just lost. The younger species they had dismissed as reckless and unwise were about to show them the true meaning of independence. Within hours, the first human ships began disappearing from Council space using technology that defied everything the older species thought they knew about physics. Captain Jin-Ho Kim stood on the bridge of the Taiguk as space around him began to bend and twist. The quantum fold drive hummed with energy that made the air itself vibrate. Through the viewscreen he watched as the massive Kepler station prepared for transport. The space station housed 50,000 human civilians who had called the Outer Rim their home for 3 generations. Quantum field is stable, reported his navigator, Lieutenant Haewon Kong. She was the engineer who had helped design the fold drives in secret. For the past decade, while the Galactic Council treated humans like junior partners, Earth's best minds had been working on technology that would change everything. Jin-Ho activated his communicator to address the station. Kepler Station, this is Captain Kim. Prepare for immediate transport to Sol System. Full jump in 30 seconds. The response came quickly from Station Commander Young-Soo Nam. All personnel secured, Captain. We are ready for transport. Jin-Ho nodded to his crew. Initiate quantum fold. Space around the massive station simply disappeared. One moment, Kepler Station existed in the Vega sector, 400 light-years from Earth. The next moment, it materialized in orbit around Mars. The journey that should have taken months with conventional, faster-than-light travel had happened instantly. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. Human colonies, research stations, military bases, and civilian settlements vanished without warning. The quantum fold technology worked by folding space-time itself, creating a tunnel between 2 points that existed outside normal physics. 2. Outside observers? It looked like the humans had simply ceased to exist. General Taejin Yoon coordinated the massive evacuation from his command ship in the Sol system. His tactical display showed hundreds of operations happening simultaneously. Every human presence in Council space was being withdrawn in what historians would later call the Great Exodus. "Status report?" he requested from his communications officer. 70% of civilian populations have been evacuated. Military assets are at 85% withdrawal. We estimate complete evacuation within 48 hours, sir. The general nodded grimly. Earth had spent decades building settlements and infrastructure throughout Council space. Now they were abandoning everything they had worked for because the Council could not treat them as equals. On the industrial world of Titan 7, Colonel Young Sunam directed the evacuation of the largest human mining operation in the galaxy. The planet produced rare metals that were essential for advanced technology. Hundreds of alien species depended on these materials for their own civilizations. "Sir, the Nexari Collective is demanding we leave the mining equipment," reported his aide. "They say it belongs to the planet, not to humanity." Young-Su smiled coldly. "Tell them they are welcome to the equipment, but remind them that human-designed systems require human maintenance codes to function. Without our technicians, their precious mining equipment will be useless metal in about 6 months." The mining facilities were indeed left behind, but the human workers took something more valuable with them. They took the knowledge of how everything worked. The automated systems, the safety protocols, the maintenance schedules, all of it required human expertise to continue functioning throughout the galaxy. Alien species began to realize what was happening. The Vorthan Empire discovered that 40% of their agricultural systems had been designed and maintained by human engineers. The food production systems were already showing signs of failure without human oversight. The Nexari Collective found their quantum computers becoming unstable. Human physicists had written the stability protocols that kept the crystalline being's technology from destroying itself. Without constant human monitoring, the computers began to malfunction in ways the Nexari could not fix. Engineer Haewon Kang monitored the evacuation from her laboratory on Luna. She had spent 15 years developing the quantum fold technology, working in secret because she knew this day would come. Her team had built the drives using principles that even the ancient Nexari could not understand. "The fold drives are performing perfectly," she reported to General Yoon. "We have successfully relocated 2 million civilians and their entire infrastructure. The Council species cannot track our movements or predict our destinations. The technology was humanity's greatest secret. While the Council treated them like children, human scientists had been developing physics that transcended normal space-time. The fold drives did not just move objects faster than light. They moved them outside the normal flow of time and space entirely. On Zentara Prime, the Galactic Council was in emergency session. Chancellor Morthok faced a chamber full of panicking delegates. Species after species reported the disappearance of human assets from their territories. "The humans cannot simply vanish," insisted the ethereal representative, its gaseous form flickering with agitation. "Our sensors show nothing. No energy signatures, no warp trails, no quantum disturbances. They are simply gone." Morthak had ordered his finest military minds to investigate. The Vorthan Empire's most advanced ships had tried to intercept fleeing human vessels. The human ships had simply disappeared in front of them, as if they had never existed in the first place. Admiral Hyun-woo Park stood on the bridge of his flagship as the last human military units prepared for withdrawal. His fleet had fought beside alien species for decades. They had bled and died for Council ideals of peace and cooperation. Now those same species wanted to strip away their weapons and treat them like dangerous children. "All units report ready for final withdrawal," his tactical officer announced. Hyun-woo looked at the tactical display showing the positions of various alien fleets. Several species had sent warships to try to force human units to comply with the Council resolution. They did not understand that humanity was beyond their reach now. "Send a message to all Council fleets in the area," he ordered. "Tell them that Earth thanks them for their years of cooperation. Inform them that they will need to find new solutions to their problems without human assistance. The message was transmitted across subspace channels to every alien ship in the sector. Then Admiral Park's entire fleet simply vanished, leaving empty space where moments before there had been humanity's most powerful warships. Back on Earth, President Ji-won Han addressed the planet in a global broadcast. His words were calm but carried the weight of historical significance. My fellow humans, today we have taken the first step toward true independence. For 2 centuries we have served the Galactic Council faithfully. We have shared our technology, our resources, and our lives in the name of galactic peace. In return, we have been treated as junior partners who could not be trusted with our own destiny. He paused, looking directly into the camera that would carry his words to every human settlement in the Sol system. Today that changes. We have withdrawn from Council space not out of anger, but out of dignity. We will show the galaxy what humanity can accomplish when we are free to pursue our own path among the stars. The universe is vast and there is room for all of us to find our place within it. As his speech ended, the last human transport ships completed their full jumps back to Earth space. The great exodus was complete. Humanity had vanished from Council space entirely, leaving behind empty facilities and failing systems that the alien species were already struggling to maintain. The galaxy would soon learn what it meant to function without human innovation, human dedication, and human sacrifice. Dr. Kyung-ho Bay stood in the center of the most advanced laboratory humanity had ever built. The facility floated in space between Earth and Mars, hidden from all detection systems. Around him, massive quantum generators hummed with power that could reshape reality itself. Today, he would activate the isolation protocol and make the Sol system disappear from the galaxy forever. All systems are ready, Doctor, reported his assistant, Commander Yoon-ji Shin. She had spent years preparing for this moment, designing defensive systems that existed in multiple dimensions at once. The barrier generators are positioned around the entire solar system. We can begin activation whenever you give the order. Kyung-ho looked at the readings on his screens. The quantum barrier would not just hide Earth from alien sensors. It would remove the Sol system from normal spacetime entirely, creating a pocket dimension that existed alongside the regular universe but remained completely separate from it. Begin activation sequence, he ordered. The generators came online one by one. Space around the solar system began to shift and bend in ways that normal physics could not explain. The barrier formed slowly, starting at the edge of Pluto's orbit and working inward. It existed in 11 different dimensions simultaneously, making it impossible for any known technology to detect or penetrate. On Earth, billions of humans watched as their sky changed. The stars remained visible, but something felt different. The quantum barrier allowed light to pass through from the outside, but nothing could detect Earth's presence from beyond the barrier. To the rest of the galaxy, the Sol system had simply ceased to exist. Admiral Hyen-woo Park monitored the activation from his command center on Luna. His ships were already being upgraded with technology that had been kept secret even from most humans, weapons that could manipulate time itself, shields that existed in dimensions where matter could not touch them, engines that moved by convincing space that the ship was already at its destination. The barrier is fully operational, reported Dr. Kyung-ho over the communication system. We are now completely isolated from galactic civilization. No sensor can find us, no weapon can reach us, and no communication can penetrate our defenses. The activation of the isolation protocol marked the beginning of humanity's true independence. But across the galaxy, the consequences of Earth's disappearance were becoming catastrophic. On Vega Prime, the capital world of the Vorthan Empire, Chancellor Morthak faced the worst crisis in his species' 50,000-year history: the food production systems that fed billions of Vorthans were failing. The automated farms required constant adjustment and maintenance that only human engineers understood. The protein synthesis plants have shut down completely, reported his chief administrator. Without human technicians, we cannot restart them. 40% of our food supply has been lost. Morthak had ruled for 3,000 years. He had seen empires rise and fall, but he had never faced a crisis like this. The humans had not destroyed anything when they left. They had simply taken their knowledge with them, and that knowledge turned out to be essential for keeping Vorthan civilization functioning. The Nexari collective faced even worse problems. Their quantum computers, which controlled everything from transportation to communication, were becoming unstable. The crystalline beings had relied on human physicists to maintain the delicate balance that kept their technology from destroying itself. Dr. Dongmin Jung watched the galactic chaos unfold from his monitoring station inside the barrier. His job was to observe what happened to the galaxy after humanity's departure. The results were worse than anyone had predicted. The cascade failures are accelerating, he reported to Earth's leadership. Transportation networks are collapsing as alien species discover they cannot maintain the systems humans built for them. 3 major trade routes have shut down completely in the past week. The irony was not lost on him. The Galactic Council had dismissed humans as a young, inexperienced species. Now they were discovering that this young species had been quietly maintaining the infrastructure that kept galactic civilization running. Border conflicts erupted as species blamed each other for driving humanity away. The Outer Rim territories, which had depended heavily on human agricultural colonies, faced immediate starvation. Alien fleets tried desperately to locate Earth's new position, but their most advanced sensors found nothing. Commander Youngji Shin oversaw the upgrading of Earth's military forces from her command post on the moon. The weapons they were building defied everything the galaxy thought it knew about warfare. Missiles that traveled backward through time to strike their targets before they were fired. Energy weapons that convinced matter to stop existing. Ships that could phase between dimensions to avoid all attacks. The new fleet will be operational within 6 months, she reported to Admiral Park. Our technology has advanced beyond anything the Council species possess. We are no longer the same civilization that left their space. The quantum barrier had an unexpected side effect that Dr. Kyung-ho discovered during his monitoring. Time moved differently inside the barrier than outside. While days passed in the galaxy, weeks passed on Earth. Humanity was evolving and advancing at an accelerated rate, while the rest of the galaxy struggled with the chaos they had created. 3 months after the barrier's activation, the first alien fleet attempted to breach Earth's defenses. An Nexari task force used their most powerful quantum disruptors to try to find and destroy the Sol system. Their weapons fired at the space where Earth should have been, but the energy beams passed through empty space and struck nothing. Captain Hyojin SCO watched the attack from her dimensional scout ship, which existed partially outside normal space. She could observe the alien fleet while remaining completely invisible to their sensors. The Nexari fleet is firing blindly, she reported to Earth Command. Their weapons cannot even detect the barrier, let alone penetrate it. To them, we simply do not exist. The failed attack demonstrated the futility of trying to locate humanity by force. Earth had transcended the normal limitations of space and time. They existed in a realm that alien science could not reach or understand. Meanwhile, the galaxy continued its descent into chaos. Ancient enemies resumed old conflicts without human peacekeepers to maintain stability. The careful balance that had kept galactic civilization stable for millennia was crumbling without the species that the Council had considered too young and reckless to be trusted. On the ethereal homeworld, gas-based beings who had lived for millions of years found themselves unable to maintain the atmospheric processes that kept their planet habitable. The technology required knowledge of quantum mechanics that only humans possessed. Dr. Dongmin Jung compiled his reports with growing amazement. They called us children, he told his colleagues. But we were the ones keeping their civilization from falling apart. Without us, they are discovering that their great age and wisdom mean nothing if they lack the knowledge to maintain their own technology. The isolation protocol had succeeded beyond all expectations. Humanity was safe from galactic interference. and the galaxy was learning a harsh lesson about the value of the species they had dismissed. The universe was about to discover that sometimes the youngest voices carry the most important wisdom. Fleet Admiral Sujin Park stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching reports flood in from across the galaxy. She was Admiral Hyunwoo Park's daughter, but the woman who commanded humanity's forces now was nothing like the officers who had served the Galactic Council. 50 years had passed on Earth since the isolation protocol began, though only 1 year had gone by in the outside galaxy. "Ma'am, we're receiving another transmission from the Vorthan remnants," her communications officer reported. "They're begging for assistance with their food crisis. Half their population is facing starvation." Sujin looked at the message display with cold eyes. The same species that had dismissed humans as reckless children were now desperate for help. The Vorthan Empire had collapsed completely. Their worlds were dying because they could not maintain the systems that humans had built for them. "Send the standard response," she ordered. "Earth is no longer available to provide assistance to former council members." Dr. Won-Ho Lee worked in his temporal mechanics laboratory, studying the effects of the quantum barrier on time itself. His discoveries had changed everything humans thought they knew about reality. The barrier had not just hidden Earth from the galaxy. It had created a pocket of accelerated time where humanity could evolve and advance far beyond their former limitations. "The time differential is stable at 50-1, he reported to the Earth Leadership Council. "While 1 year passes in the galaxy, we experience 50 years of development. We have advanced more in this single galactic year than in all our previous history combined." The advancement was beyond anything imaginable. Human scientists had learned to manipulate matter at the quantum level with their thoughts alone. Engineers built ships that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Soldiers wore armor that made them immune to conventional weapons by existing slightly out of phase with normal reality. Captain Hyojin SEO piloted her dimensional scout ship through the ruins of what had once been the greatest civilization in galactic history. Her vessel could phase between dimensions, allowing her to observe events throughout the galaxy without being detected. "The situation continues to deteriorate," she reported back to Earth. "The Nexari Collective has lost 60% of their core worlds. Their quantum computers are destroying entire planets when they malfunction. The ethereal conclave is gone, completely silent. We believe their atmospheric processors have failed completely." The galaxy that had once seemed so mighty and eternal was crumbling. Species that had existed for millions of years were dying out because they had forgotten how to maintain their own technology. They had relied on human innovation for so long that they could no longer function without it on the former council world of Zentara Prime. The massive chamber where Earth had been dismissed now stood empty. The Galactic Council had dissolved 6 months ago when member species could no longer maintain contact with each other. Communication networks built and maintained by humans had failed throughout the galaxy. Chancellor Morthak sat alone in his palace, a broken ruler of a dying empire. His species had controlled their region of space for 50,000 years, but now they faced extinction within a generation. The humans they had treated as inferior had been the foundation that kept their civilization standing. Dr. Won-Ho Lee made a discovery that changed everything. His deep space sensors, which could penetrate dimensions that normal technology could not reach, detected something approaching the galaxy from the void between galactic clusters. "Admiral, you need to see this immediately." He contacted Sujin Park with urgency in his voice. Sujin arrived at his laboratory within minutes. The display showed massive objects moving through dark space toward the Milky Way galaxy. They were larger than planets, moving in formation with purpose and intelligence. "What are we looking at, Doctor?" she asked. "The Devourers," Won-Ho replied grimly. "The same extragalactic force that destroyed the previous galactic civilization 10 million years ago. They're returning, just as the ancient records predicted they would." The revelation sent shockwaves through Earth's leadership. The Galactic Council had been formed originally to defend against this threat. The elder races had maintained their positions of power by claiming they were the guardians against the return of the Devourers. Now, with the Council collapsed and galactic civilization in ruins, the greatest threat in the universe was approaching. Fleet. Admiral Sujin Park called an emergency meeting of Earth's military commanders. The assembled officers represented the most advanced fighting force that had ever existed. They controlled weapons that could rewrite the laws of physics and ships that existed outside normal spacetime. The enemy that destroyed our galaxy once before is returning, she announced. Current galactic civilization is too weak and divided to mount any meaningful defense. Within months, every inhabited world in this galaxy will face complete destruction. Commander Eun-ji Shin, now elderly but still sharp, studied the tactical displays. Ma'am, our intelligence agents report that the remaining Council species are preparing for a final, desperate battle. They have perhaps 1,000 functional warships left from fleets that once numbered in the millions. The irony was staggering. The species that had dismissed humanity as too young and reckless to be trusted with weapons were now facing annihilation because they had driven away the only force capable of defending them. Captain Hyojin Nco received new orders to observe the galaxy's final preparations. What she saw filled her with a mixture of pity and disgust. The Vorthans were retrofitting civilian ships with weapons that barely functioned. The Nexari were attempting to use their malfunctioning quantum computers as weapons. The few remaining ethereal beings were preparing to sacrifice themselves in kamikaze attacks. They have no chance, she reported. Their technology is failing, their populations are dying, and their military forces are a shadow of what they once were. The Devourers will sweep through this galaxy like it is empty space. President Ji-hoon Han, who had led Earth through 50 years of isolation and advancement, faced the most important decision in human history. Earth had the power to save the galaxy that had rejected them. Their advanced technology could easily defeat the approaching threat. But why should humanity risk themselves for species that had treated them as inferior? The moral question is simple, he told his advisors. Do we allow billions of beings to die because their leaders were arrogant and foolish? Or do we prove that humanity is better than those who dismissed us? Dr. Won-ho Lee provided crucial intelligence about the approaching enemy. The Devourers are not just destroyers. They consume civilizations to fuel their own growth. If they successfully devour this galaxy, they will become powerful enough to threaten other galaxies as well. This is not just about saving our former enemies. This is about preventing a threat that could eventually consume the entire universe. The debate raged for days while the Devourers drew closer. Some argued that the galaxy deserved its fate. Others insisted that humanity had a responsibility to act. Finally, President Ji-hoon Han made his decision. We will intervene, he announced. Not because we owe these species anything, but because we are better than they are. We will show the galaxy what true strength looks like and what real wisdom means. Fleet Admiral Sujin Park began preparations for humanity's return to galactic space. The ships she commanded were beyond anything the universe had ever seen. They existed partially outside reality itself, armed with weapons that could convince matter to cease existing and protected by shields that made them untouchable. The galaxy was about to discover what humanity had become during their 50 years of isolation. The Devourers struck without warning. Their massive planet-sized ships emerged from dark space like hungry beasts awakening from a long sleep. The first worlds to fall were the Outer Rim territories where desperate alien refugees had gathered. After fleeing their dying HOMEWORL. Grand Admiral Min Seo Park, Sujin's daughter and commander of humanity's godlike fleet, watched the destruction unfold from her flagship. The new Earth existed as pure thought given physical form, a vessel that could reshape reality around itself at will. She had inherited her family's military genius, but the power she commanded was beyond anything previous generations could have imagined. Ma'am, the Vorthan remnant fleet is engaging the enemy at Rigel 7, her tactical officer reported. They're being destroyed within minutes of contact. Min Seo observed the battle through sensors that existed in dimensions the enemy could not detect. The once mighty Vorthan Empire had managed to gather 300 ships for their final stand. The Devourers swept through them like they were toys made of paper. Energy beams that could destroy planets bounced harmlessly off the enemy's living hull. Nuclear weapons powerful enough to crack moons simply disappeared when they touched the Devourer ships. The aliens fought with desperate courage, but their technology was centuries behind what they needed to survive. Ships that had once seemed powerful and advanced were revealed to be primitive relics when faced with beings that consumed entire civilizations. Dr. S.E. Ram Cho monitored the battle from her research ship, studying the enemy's capabilities. She was humanity's expert on reality manipulation technology, the science that allowed humans to rewrite the fundamental laws of physics around themselves. The Devourers don't just use advanced technology, she reported to the Fleet Command. They have evolved beyond physical limitations. Their ships are alive, grown rather than built. They consume matter and energy to fuel their own growth and reproduction. The enemy had learned from 10 million years of devouring galaxies. They had become living weapons that adapted to any threat. Conventional warfare was useless against beings that could absorb energy attacks and convert physical matter into more of themselves. Dr. Hyojin Seo watched from her dimensional scout ship as the last organized resistance in the galaxy prepared for battle. The Nexari Collective had gathered their remaining quantum computers into a massive weapon that could theoretically destroy entire star systems. The few surviving ethereal beings had combined their consciousness into a group mind powerful enough to manipulate gravity itself. They're making their final stand at the galactic core, she reported. Every surviving species has sent what ships they have left. Maybe 2,000 vessels total, facing an enemy force of millions. The battle was hopeless from the beginning. The Devourers had evolved specifically to counter every form of technology and weapon that galactic civilization possessed. They absorbed energy attacks, converted matter weapons into more of themselves, and grew stronger with every ship they destroyed. Chancellor Morthak, now ancient even by Vorthan standards, stood on the bridge of his people's last remaining ship. Around him, the final battle for galactic civilization raged in futile desperation. He had lived for 3,000 years, had ruled an empire that spanned dozens of star systems, and now he watched it all end in flames. Send a final message to any who might hear, he ordered his communications officer. Tell them that the Vorthan Empire fought to the end. Tell them we were wrong about the humans. They were not the children we thought they were. We were the children, too foolish to recognize wisdom when we saw it. The message was broadcast across the galaxy as Devourer. Ships closed in for the kill. It would be one of the last transmissions from organized galactic civilization. Just as the enemy prepared to deliver the final blow, space around the dying fleets began to shift and bend. Reality itself seemed to pause, as if the universe was holding its breath. Then ships began to appear from dimensions that should not exist. The new Earth materialized first, a vessel that looked like crystallized starlight given form. Around it, hundreds of other human ships emerged from between the spaces of reality. They moved like living thoughts, flowing through space in ways that defied every law of physics. Grand Admiral Minesio Park opened a communication channel that reached every surviving being in the galaxy. Her voice carried the authority of someone who had transcended normal limitations of existence. Attention all survivors. This is Grand Admiral Park of the Earth Defense Force. We have returned to offer assistance. On his dying flagship, Chancellor Morthok felt tears flow down his aged face. The species his people had dismissed as inferior children had returned as beings of godlike power. The humans they had tried to subjugate now came as saviors. President Ji-Hoon Han appeared via quantum projection before the surviving alien leaders. He looked exactly as he had 50 years ago, kept young by technology that controlled time itself. His message was simple but carried the weight of absolute authority. You wanted to know what the galaxy would look like without human interference. We trust the lesson has been educational. Now watch what the galaxy looks like with human protection. The battle that followed was unlike anything the universe had ever witnessed. Human ships did not fight the Devourers with conventional weapons. Instead, they convinced reality that the enemy ships had never existed in the first place. Matter simply forgot how to hold together when human weapons touched it. Energy attacks found themselves traveling backward through time before they could be fired. Dr. SciFi Realm. Cho demonstrated weapons that worked by rewriting the fundamental constants of physics around their targets. Devourer ships that had survived. The destruction of entire galaxies suddenly discovered that the strong nuclear force no longer applied to them. Their atoms simply drifted apart as the basic forces that held matter together ceased to function. The Devourers, beings that had consumed civilizations across the universe, found themselves facing opponents who treated the laws of physics as mere suggestions. Their living ships, evolved over millions of years to be perfect weapons, became helpless when humans convinced the universe that concepts like mass and energy were optional. Captain Hyojin Seo piloted her ship through impossible maneuvers existing in multiple dimensions simultaneously. She watched enemy vessels flee in terror as they encountered beings who had transcended the normal limitations of existence. "The Devourers are retreating," she reported with amazement in her voice. "For the first time in their history, they are running from prey that fought back." The retreat was complete within hours. Beings that had never known defeat fled back to the void between galaxies, terrified of humans who could unmake reality itself. The greatest threat the universe had ever known was driven away by the species that galactic civilization had dismissed as too young to be trusted. In the aftermath, President Ji-Hoon Han addressed the survivors of galactic civilization. His words would be remembered as long as intelligent life existed in the galaxy. "We offer you a choice. Accept genuine partnership and equality in a new galactic order or face the universe alone. We will not rule over you as the Council once tried to rule over us, but neither will we accept the arrogance and prejudice that nearly destroyed everything we all hold dear." The surviving alien leaders, their pride finally broken by the catastrophe they had helped create, knelt before the human president, Chancellor. Morthok spoke for all of them when he said, "We accept your terms. We were wrong to dismiss your people. Please teach us how to be worthy of your protection." Humanity had returned not as conquerors, but as the guardians they had always been meant to be. The galaxy would be rebuilt under human protection, but this time as a true partnership of equals rather than a hierarchy based on age and prejudice. The universe had learned that true strength came not from tradition or ancient wisdom, but from the courage to grow, adapt, and transcend limitations that others accepted as absolute.